Thank you to Robert Pitcock for telling me what yiffing is. You may not listen to this chapter without permission from your great-grandmother. I don't care that she's dead, I have her on speed dial. We share a common interest in yiffing vor, which is why she's with us. She lives her most depraved fantasies multiple times a day. Meanwhile, you will never get the opportunity to touch Billie Eilish's supple chest. She was telling me the other day. She talks about how ugly you are all the time, just won't shut up about it. What the fuck am I listening to? Chapter 4. Things God Doesn't Approve Of, by Joe Finsternis. Even when the flames of our love are extinguished, the darkness shall remain permanent. It will be my fondest reminder of you. Pauline spoke these words without a living soul in earshot, but I was there to witness every syllable. When Pauline grew to 4 years of age, her grandfather gave her a puppy. It was a Rottweiler pup. It made it to adulthood, but not far. Pauline did not like this dog. She preferred cats. She disliked that it needed to be trained where to poop. She disliked how it chewed up her favorite doll. She chewed up one of its ears, and it had a flavor just like bacon. No one was there to hear the dog's cries. Her parents believed its wounds must have been caused by the gorilla that escaped from the local zoo. In actuality, the gorilla was 3 blocks over, happily chomping down on a 2-month-old infant it had pilfered from a widow who'd been out for a stroll. The widow did not live for much longer after this. Considering her hardships, I think it's best we breeze past the subject of her damnation. Pardon me for being less cheerful, dear reader. It's been quite a tiresome day. Most of all, Pauline hated that the dog always expected a treat when she reached out a hand to pet it. Soon as she'd reach out, the pooch would shove its muzzle into her hand, sniffing and spreading its filthy, oral mucus all across her palm. One day, Pauline got fed up with this and tied the pup's mouth shut with pink ribbon. It looked very pretty, but her grandfather was visiting that day and didn't very much care for the act of cruelty. He took the dog home, and it grew until it was 5 times the size of Pauline. The dog was not kind to Pauline whenever she was visiting her grandfather. It may have been due to the fact that she kept smacking its rear, punching its nose, or pulling at its ear, as though in an effort to make the poor darling's head more symmetrical. She did this when her grandfather wasn't around, so her grandfather wasn't there to witness her partial mutilation. It's quite the blessing that he was unable to prevent it. It occurred as the rot was frolicking in the field by her grandfather's property. She'd come with a new torment. Her grandfather allowed her to be around the dog when she visited, in hopes that she would eventually grow out of her childish and mean-spirited nature. He was a good man. He shares a seat with the Rottweiler in the kingdom of heaven. Soon as the old man was on the opposite side of the house tending to his garden, Pauline took the opportunity to enact this new torment. The canine had been reluctant of late to let her approach it. It did not act vicious or angry. It was still young and filled with love. It merely whined in fear and fled. Pauline knew that she would have to be sneaky. Her grandfather had hopes of breeding more pups once the dog was of age. After Pauline reached from behind, slowly and deliberately moving to avoid touching the hairs of its hind legs, the poor dog no longer had the functionality to breed. This time the dog was through being gentle. The fact that Pauline was considerably smaller would only make her easier to devour. It's a shame we don't receive dogs from Earth. Our hounds are bred at home, and they are not soft and fuzzy like cats. Pauline attempted to run, but she tripped on a branch. Most of her was taken to the nearest hospital that was 5 miles away. Her grandfather was fretting and fussing, even delivering criticism, saying he knew that the dog wouldn't have attacked if she hadn't been messing with it. Pauline was not crying. She loved the shade of red spreading across the white towel that wrapped around her foot. She wanted so much to see what was underneath it, but she was in the passenger seat of grandfather's car, and he wouldn't have liked that very much. She did not know it yet, but the intense pain was her sexual awakening. The one piece of her foot that was missing was the heel of her right foot, bone and all. The Rottweiler slept in its home as it digested its spoils. And Pauline quite liked the wooden piece that was custom made and fitted to be strapped to her foot. She painted it pink, with a pattern of tiny blood-red splatters which she told everyone were flowers. They were merely a reminder of the best feelings she'd yet had in her childhood years. Most little girls are not like Pauline, and that is a good thing. Pain is a warning, a learning experience. As it was, Pauline didn't very much care for having a piece of her body stolen, so she decided to make amends with the dog once her grandfather made the mistake of bringing her into his house yet again. The rat was not going to tolerate her presence. It was growling like distant thunder, but Pauline had a treat to offer. The rat was silenced by the offer of an edible gift, its favorite kind of gift to receive. Its snout was sniffing excitedly, oral mucus falling from its jowls in thin streams. The treat was brown, but smelled so much sweeter than the brown things which the rat was more accustomed to nibbling on. It simply adored the way it tasted as the treat entered its body. It simply abhorred the way it tasted as the treat exited its body. Pauline was no longer allowed to visit her grandfather's house after this, and when her grandfather came to visit her mother and father, Pauline was told to stay inside her bedroom. She did not mind this. Of all the pain that she had experienced, burning was her absolute favorite. The tiny girl got carried away. She hated the smell of the smoke and climbed out of her bedroom window for tastier breaths. Her mother, her father, and her grandfather were screaming. She took a walk into the woods. It got dark before long, and Pauline made friends in the forest. She liked them because she didn't need to show them where to defecate, and they were respectful enough to not spread their saliva upon her. She did not know it, but she met her father in the woods at the stroke of midnight. She was delighted by the antlers which sprouted from his head, the way they danced in the moonlight like black streams of flame. And no, the father who aided in the conception of Paul and Pauline on the same evening is not the Lord and Master. She has been questioned on the subject and stated that your world has already brought itself to damnation without the need for an Antichrist. Her father spoke to her in a voice much like the late Rottweiler when it had been growling at her. I know that I've started multiple times at this point. This is literally my fourth take. You're just going to have to deal with this. Anyway, he told her of the boy that she would soon meet, and of their destiny together. He never told Paul about this because he knew that Paul would not approve, and he strongly disliked the boy. Their father was a cat person. What more do you wish from me? Yes, I know their father quite well. His identity is quite relevant, but that doesn't mean you have to know it. Is there any answer that would leave you properly whelmed? If you feel that I've offered you false advertisement, just like the title of Jason Pargan's premiere novel, you may scream your grievances into the void, for rest assured, it will prove to be much more caring than I. Pauline arrived at the orphanage soon after. She was largely considered to be the prettiest girl there. Rather than having me describe her, just imagine what an attractive 9-year-old girl looks like, and then transport yourself to jail. And the prettiest girl at the orphanage naturally fell for the most popular boy. Paul didn't know it, but he too was about to fall deeply. It would not be in the romantic sense.